What is the most exciting weight class in the UFC today? The MMA landscape is always changing. The best division from a couple years ago may not be looking so great for the future. It may be looking pretty bleak. And the divisions that weren't so hype a few years ago are looking really promising today. I'm going to be ranking the best weight classes in the UFC from most exciting to least exciting. And we may as well get into this right now, starting with the best division right now, the welterweight class. The 170-pound weight division is, in my opinion, the most exciting, most promising division in the UFC today. For a while, it seemed like we were in the logjam division. No top contenders were fighting each other. None of the prospects had been able to break through into the top 5 yet. And the title picture was Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards, and that was basically it. It seemed kind of stale. But a lot of the former prospects that we weren't so excited about, like Joaquin Buckley and Sean Brady, again, we didn't think they were going to be that great. They've done a complete 180. Now they're looking like they could both be potential future champions. They're some of the most improved fighters. There are an unlimited supply, it seems, of future title challengers, top 5 guys that are all hitting their prime right now. None of them are old. They're all exciting. Most importantly, we don't really know who the best one is. There's nobody that looks like they're leagues ahead. JDM, Shavkat Rakhmonov, there's no clear answer of who's better. Belal Muhammad, new champion. He's got an endless supply of people he could fight. We're going to be good for the next few years. As long as the UFC doesn't book all of these guys against each other, we're going to have an unlimited supply of title challengers. They're all in their prime, as I said. Again, the welterweight division used to be the logjam division. It used to be the Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman division. Things were looking bleak. Things were not so exciting. But we have so many exciting fighters, also good prospects. We have Brian Battle, Renat Fakhretdinov, Carlos Leal. He's a wild card. You've got Carlos Prates on a 5-fight highlight reel KO streak, looking like a modern-day Anderson Silva. You have Michael Morales, who is also a pretty good prospect in his mid-20s, not in his prime yet, and he's already making his way into the top 10. So in my opinion, this is the most exciting weight class for the future because the next few years, we have an unlimited supply of really solid ranked fights. Guys that we think could be a future champion. There's a bunch of them. All right. Sean Brady looking like one of the best grapplers in the sport. Joaquin Buckley, extremely well-rounded, can hurt people on the feet, can wrestle as well. Great gas tank. Jack Della Maddalena, some of the most entertaining boxing to watch in MMA right now. Shavkat Rakhmonov, he smudges people up against the fence, but he's also got a nasty submission game, and he's also a marauder. Okay. And then, of course, Belal Muhammad. He always brings it. He's got a good pace. He's well-rounded. So Ian Gary also in the mix. Leon Edwards, we'll see what he can do. But we've also got some vets, man. We've got some vets. We've got old Kamaru Usman. I don't know if he's retired. I mean, what is going on with Usman? Is he fighting? Is he not? I feel like he's still deciding himself. And then we also have MVP, all right? We've got Jeff Neal, Hands of Steel. We've got the dodo bird himself, Nico Price. And we've got the king of Kung Fu. All right, we've got Muslim Salikov, one of those old vets. It makes you scratch your head and ask yourself how he's so fast these days. He's one of these guys, you could startle him, but, don't stand too close to him because he might get you with the wheel kick. Dude, the vets are entertaining. The prospects, to be honest, this is not the best prospects group out of any division, but I think the title picture makes up for it because of how competitive it is, how everybody is in their prime. Nobody's in their late 30s. They've hardly fought each other either. I mean, Bilal's fought a couple of these guys, but, Shavkat's not fought Brady. He's not fought Buckley. He's not fought JDM. JDM's hardly fought any of these guys either. So it's just such an exciting weight class. We've got an endless supply of title challengers. This is, in my opinion, the most exciting division right now. As we get on to the second most exciting division, I mean, this one, to be honest, I don't know if it would have been my number 2. A lot of people still consider the lightweight division to be the best. And actually, if you're looking at the prospects, I think this might be the best prospects and contenders class out of any of the divisions. It's better than the welterweight division. The title picture, if you were to ask me, maybe a month ago, I would have said, I don't know, man, the title picture's not that exciting because Makhachev is probably going to leave soon. But now that Ilia Topuria moved up, and we still haven't seen the rematch between Makhachev and Arman, you have the Arman fight with Makhachev, you have the Ilia fight with Makhachev, you have a potential Ilia and Charles Oliveira fight. Max Holloway is now in the mix. We know how good he is. He's able to knock out, almost any lightweight. I'm telling you, fucking school Justin Gaethje. He's got the lighter man skill, and Max Holloway, he's going to have a better chin than ever at 155. He's in the title picture. It's actually really exciting right now. Assuming Makhachev sticks around for like 2 more fights. I mean, this is close to the welterweight division. It's not there yet because, again, Charles Oliveira, unlike some of these welterweights, he's up there in age. He's like 35, and Holloway, even though he's still very good, coming off of a KO loss, former champion, grizzled vet. But Ilia Topuria, Arman, that's going to be really interesting. Dominant champion Makhachev makes it very interesting as well. But I don't see this being super good for like more than the next year and a half. Whereas the welterweight division, I think that title picture is going to be interesting for a long time because Pratis is going to break through into the top 5. You're going to have Morales as well. So, we'll see what the lightweight title picture is looking like. But a lot of these guys I don't think are going to be that big of a threat as far as the prospects and contenders go. But there is, still a lot of interesting fighters in the mix. Like, for example, I think that Joel Alvarez is a future top 5 fighter. He's really exciting. I think that Mauricio Ruffy could be a future top 5 fighter. Maybe Chase Hooper. But as far as the other guys go, like Benoit Saint-Denis, he's definitely a contender. Paddy Pimblett, definitely a contender, rising prospect and all that. But I don't know if they're going to get that far. Same thing with Grant Dawson, the missing link. Grant Dawson is a very good grappler, but I just think he's a little bit one-dimensional. He's sort of like a modern-day Beneil Dariush. Ignacio Bahamonde is very exciting. We'll see how he can do. And, Maitek Odobai, very good as well. Raumbetsky, very good. Tons of exciting vets. The lightweight division may have the best vet class. You've got Dan Hooker. You've got Dustin Poirier. And these are people that are vets, but they're not in the title picture. I don't think Poirier's in the title picture anymore. I don't think Hooker's going to be fighting for a belt. Gaethje, there are some talks, but let's be honest, I don't think he's ever going to fight for a belt again if the UFC doesn't give him the chance. If he somehow flukes his way into a title shot next, it's possible, but if he doesn't get it next, he's not going to fight for a belt again. Gamrot, I don't know whether to consider Gamrot like an old vet or just a contender. Moicano, vet, Dariush, Fiziev, like, it's pretty good. Lightweight is always, a real good weight class, but I feel like Topuria and Max moving up makes this 10 times more exciting because if they weren't in this weight class, it'd be the Charles Oliveira, Makhachev, and Arman Sarukian show, and that's fine, but, we've already seen these guys fight each other a few times, except for Makhachev and Arman. We haven't seen the rematch yet. That's still going to be really highly competitive, but I think this is number 2 because Ilia is now in the mix, and also the contenders and prospects really stacked, really loaded. As we get on to the number 3 best division, I think this would have been number 2 if it weren't for Ilia moving up. The middleweight division, sort of like welterweight, maybe not 2 years ago, but like 4 or 5 years ago, the middleweight division was a no man's land. It was Adesanya, it was Whitaker, and Marvin Vettori was like the 3rd best fighter. People were saying Vettori was like the future champ. He'd be fighting for belts over and over and over again because he was like the only one that was in his late 20s and well-rounded, and like there was just nobody else that could compete with Whitaker and Adesanya, really. But now it's a completely different story. Adesanya and Whitaker are not even in the title picture anymore. They're vets. They're just straight up in the vet class. You've got Strickland, who I think that's, after that last one, I don't know if we're going to see Strickland fight for the belt again. He's, in my opinion, he's sort of in that vet school of things these days. Of course, Vettori, he's the youngest vet in the game. And you've also got Jared Cannonier, but it's really the prospects, the contenders, and the current title picture that makes this really interesting. The middleweight division, if you were to ask me a year ago, could have been the best weight class in the UFC, but now that a lot of those really interesting prospects have made it into the title picture, we're sort of starting to come down from like the booming surge of the best prospects class we ever saw. The middleweight division had like fucking unlimited prospects. Outside the top 15 was like more interesting than the top 15 itself for like a year. But now things are starting to chill a little bit. Du Plessis is beating a lot of people up. He got rid of the old vets. The title picture, Dricus and Khamzat, really exciting, but I'm going to be honest, how excited can you get for Dricus Du Plessis versus Imavov or Khamzat versus Imavov? Listen, Imavov is good, but for whatever reason, man, maybe it's because he doesn't really promote fights that well and all that. He's not like a big personality. There's not a lot of hype surrounding him, Same thing with Cal Baraujo, man. I feel like he, out of the fighting nerds, he's maybe the furthest, when it comes to getting close to a belt, but he might be the least exciting. I mean, that's just a testament to how interesting the fighting nerds are. You got Gene Silva, Prates, Mauricio Ruffy. I think it's just because of his style is maybe not as flashy as the other guys, but he's in the mix. Hernandez is in the mix. I've been hyping up Fluffy Hernandez for a while, but outside of Dricus versus Khamzat, there's not really like a big title fight looming. You know what I mean? There's not really a big one coming up. Hernandez is good. Baraujo's good. And Imavov is good. All of these guys are in their prime. It is interesting. Dricus is a very entertaining champion. But I just think the name value, the hype after the Khamzat and Dricus fight is really not going to be that big. The prospects are still great. This is why it's the third best weight class. You've got Joe Pyfer, right? You've got Rainer de Ritter. He's the wild card in this weight class right now. You've got Bo. You've got Roman Kopylov. Brendan Allen is always pretty good. I think he's underrated. If you put Brendan Allen, in the UFC 15 years ago, he would have been a 15-time champ. Gregory Rodriguez, you've got Shadow Bullet brother, and MVP. I hope he stays in this weight class. I put him in the welterweight division, but he'd also be very interesting in this weight class. The vets are really good. Adesanya, if he sticks around, always going to be in a big fight. Whitaker, entertaining. Strickland has a relatively big name, so. I think this is a really solid weight class, but it's not better than welterweight just because, again, like the welterweight, you may not have the biggest names, but Buckley, Brady, the hardcore fans are just really excited about the stylistic matchups here. Whereas, Brady, now that he got that dominant win over Leon Edwards, like his name, the hype and the buzz around his name is greater than Imavov, even though Imavov just KO'd Adesanya, if you get what I'm saying. So let's get on to the number 4 best weight class in the UFC. You're probably, scratching your head saying, what, man, where's bantamweight? We'll talk about bantamweight. I actually think featherweight is pretty underrated. It may not be as good as it was at one time. It's never been the best weight class, but it's actually sort of creeping up there. It's getting pretty good, all right? The title picture is actually not that exciting because Ilia Topuria vacated, and people are going to see whoever wins, the title next as like a bit of a Mickey Mouse champ, but Volkanovski is always entertaining. One of the GOATs, top 5 fighter of all time. So there's always going to be hype generated around him fighting. Diego Lopez, very exciting, sort of like a featherweight Charles Oliveira. Movsar Evloev, the dark horse of this division, very underrated. He has high output. He actually has good ground and pound. He pushes a good pace. Aljamain Sterling, he is a vet like Volk, but he's in the title picture. I honestly think Aljo is good enough because he almost beat Movsar. I think he's good enough to be able to, if he wins one more fight, have a chance at the number 1 contender spot. And I think, Aljo, lighter man skill, no weight cut. I actually think he always is going to be in the mix. Arnold Allen as well. I don't know if he's ever going to be a champion, but he's in the picture, I guess, because he's on a good streak. I just don't think the title picture is going to have a lot of hype around it after this next one, especially if Volk loses. If Diego knocks out Volk, it's going to be a big win. But because Volk has already been knocked out twice in a row before that, it's just not going to be as big as it was when Ilya did it, when Makhachev did it. And again, I think Movsar is underratedly entertaining. I think that people say he's really boring, but actually, active grappler, relatively decent output on the feet. He doesn't have a lot of finishes, but you can't say he's going to be like a big superstar. Obviously not. It's when you get to the prospects and contenders where things get interesting. And also this has a very stacked vet class as well. You've got Bryce Mitchell, who's also blowing up his name these days, and he's also just a really good grappler. He could beat Gene Silva. And again, his name, he's becoming more popular. Gene Silva as well, extremely entertaining, someone that has highlight reel capability in every single fight. I think Gene Silva will be fighting for a belt within the next year and a half. And I think he could be the biggest star in this weight class because of his fighting style alone and the highlight reel capability. You've also got Yusuf Zalal. You've got Lerone Murphy as well. Lerone Murphy, sort of an old guy. He's not the most entertaining, but he's in the mix, right? He's in the mix. Yusuf Zalal, I think he is actually underratedly entertaining. Everyone shat on his last performance. It was only the third round against Calvin Kattar that looked bad, but you know what? I actually think he's pretty entertaining. Great striker, good grappler, the modern era, very fast. You've got Felipe Lima, who is sort of like, a mini Dustin Poirier, very well-rounded. Who did he choke out again? He choked out Naimov. That was very impressive in his debut. Got a win since then as well. And then you've got Sean Woodson and Nathaniel Wood, right? You've got the two Woods. You've got Woodson, Nathaniel Wood, Doo-Hoo Choi, looking very good. He destroyed Nate Landwehr in his last fight. Nathaniel Wood, it seems like he's finally going to be able to break out real soon. And again, as far as name value goes, Bryce Mitchell, there's a lot of hype around Bryce Mitchell right now. Gene Silva, a ton of hype around that fight. Okay, and when it comes to the vets, you've got Edson Barboza. You've got Brian T. City Ortega, Josh Emmett. Okay, and of course, Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull, straight over from Bellator. He's going to be like this division's Michael Chandler. Just adding Patricio Pitbull, I mean, that makes this division a lot better as well. Because again, you've got one big meaty hooks guy. Now you've got another. And again, Barboza, I honestly feel like he might only have one more fight. His durability is really going down. But you've still got Yair. You've still got T-City. This is an interesting weight class. I just think the title picture is not that exciting after this next one. And as we get on to the bantamweight division a couple of years ago could have been like the second most exciting. I think it would have been. It would have been lightweight, and then it would have been bantamweight. But I think it's starting to slide. And it's really just because the contenders are just not that exciting. I mean, we'll talk about the title picture. You've got Merab, entertaining champion. The fans are starting to really like Merab. He's just, bullying people with his cardio and with his physicality, and it's actually pretty entertaining to watch. If you think about it, his only real boring fight that he had recently in the last 4 years was against Jose Aldo, but everything since has been pretty okay, except for the O'Malley fight. Let's be honest, that fucking sucked. Merab's not the most entertaining, but he's not super boring because he can ragdoll people, and his fight with Umar was a war, right? Lots of big slugging moments. The crowd was going berserk. That was entertaining, but, Merab is sort of getting to that point to where he's just so dominant, you know what I mean? And he's not 50-45ing everybody, but he's just able to beat everybody that you can't really think that anyone is going to beat him, you know what I mean? And because we have a champion that we don't believe can be beat, the title picture is just not that exciting. I think the real excitement comes with O'Malley, Umar, and Yan, just because those are all interesting matchups. I think O'Malley versus Yan would be an amazing matchup. Umar versus O'Malley would be an amazing matchup. So I think it's like the guys that could be fighting Merab, it's more interesting when they're fighting each other. But yeah, the title picture, Merab's already beat all three of them, which is why I say he's the bantamweight GOAT, because he's cleared out the best contenders, and he would obviously destroy, all the prospects or other contenders. As we get on to the prospects and contenders, this is really why the bantamweight division is starting to slip. Again, there was a time where Sandhagen was on the come up, right? O'Malley hadn't fought for the belt, and things were looking really exciting. Right? Song Yadong still hadn't gotten beat a couple of these times, right? But now it's like, man, Song's still pretty good. Sandhagen's still pretty good, but I don't know if they're going to be fighting for a belt. I think they're going to be, in that top 8 for a while, but I can't say they'll be challenging for a title, so I consider them just good contenders. They're good, but after them, I mean, Vinicius Oliveira is the most entertaining one, but even he doesn't have that much hype. And after him, it's like, whoa, we're really, taking a big step down as far as hype goes. Raul Rosas Jr., Raul Rosas, I mean, he's good, but it's going to be a long time before we actually know how good he truly is. The UFC is going to push him slowly, and he's a bit of a decision guy right now. You can only get so hyped, right? You've got Montel Jackson. He's got some good KOs, but he's sort of the mute of the weight class. We've never heard him talk, so the name value is just not there. Peyton Talbot. we thought he could have been, the next one up. We thought he was about to go on that O'Malley fast track, but he couldn't get past Barcelos. We don't know if he'll improve on his grappling. So we don't know if he'll get to the top 10. Okay? Exciting, but again, will he even get there? And then you've got Batista. He's just boring, high output, smudge him against the fence. You've got McGee, who's 35, entertaining boxing, but again, the name value, the hype, it's just not really there. So the bantamweight division has just not really got a lot of fun prospects at the moment. I mean, you've got Basharat. Basharat was a prospect. I mean, that's really the type of prospect that we're talking about. So it's really just like a, interesting number one contender fight picture where Merab just isn't going to lose to anyone. Relatively boring prospects. They're not all boring, but they're just not that hype at the moment. And the vets are actually interesting, but again, Cejudo's probably on the verge of retirement. Aldo, I mean, he'll probably beat Zahabi. I don't think Zahabi's a real contender. He'll probably win that, but again, it's like I don't know how long he'll stick around. Figueiredo, he's entertaining as a vet. The vets are more entertaining than the actual prospects right now. And of course, you've got Chito Vera, who's in the mix. But yeah, the bantamweight division, not as hype as it used to be. Always going to be entertaining as far as the styles go and the fights are always good, but I just don't know if it's that hype at the moment, okay? Flyweight's getting better, but I mean, think about it. The title picture, Pantoja's basically fought, most of them, right? He's fought Moreno a bunch of times. He already fought Usyk, although that was an interesting close fight. You've got Manel Cap. You've got Kai Kara France. That's somewhat interesting too. But, I mean, listen, there are always going to be great fights at flyweight. The flyweight division is always going to, deliver as far as entertainment when it comes to the actual fights themselves. But as far as hype goes, it can't really compete even with the bantamweight division because the name value is just a lot greater. But there are always going to be good fights. Even though Pantoja's fought a couple of the guys in the title picture, it's still interesting because, of course, he's fought Manel Cap, but a rematch could be okay. I mean, Manel Cap has gotten a lot better. Kai Kara France is looking very dangerous. He's got good grappling defense, so that could be interesting. But the best and most interesting fight is Kai Kara France versus Manel Cap. The title picture is good, but it's not great, okay? The prospects of flyweight are really what makes the flyweight division pretty good. It's not that far behind bantamweight. It's still an excellent division. I'm not ready to say that even though it's number 6, it's like a non-exciting division. It's actually very exciting, and that's mostly because of the prospects, okay? You've got Tatsudo Taira, wicked grappling, great finisher on the ground. Joshua Van, sort of like a flyweight Max Holloway. Insane output, very entertaining striker. Ronaldo Rodriguez, killer be killed type of fighter, very entertaining. Kaya Sukura, he's new in the mix, man. He's a bit of a Mr. Smiley Pants, but he's got a really entertaining style. You got Amir Albazi, who's honestly probably the most entertaining out of them all. Loner Kavanaugh had an amazing fight on UFC London, one of the only good fights on UFC London. Entertaining prospect, well-rounded. There are not many interesting vets in this weight class. This weight class has one grizzled vet. Now we're really getting to the shittier weight classes that aren't that exciting. I'm not ready to call light heavyweight not exciting, but there's just no good prospects, right? I have a prospects and contenders list, but these are all really just contenders. The only real prospect is Zhang Ming Yang. I guess Azamat Mirzakhanov, you could consider him a prospect, but he looks like a 50-year-old man, so he's more of just a contender because of that alone. But the title picture is actually not looking that interesting. Of course, that could just be because the last fight between Magomed and Alex Pereira was boring. Let's just be honest. It wasn't that interesting. It also just seems like Magomed, if he can beat Pereira, and Pereira was so dominant against strikers like Yuri, he'll probably easily beat Yuri. Okay, so, after the rematch between Magomed and Pereira, if Magomed wins, it's going to be either Yuri or Olberg. And Olberg, he's in the title picture now because he beat Jan Blachowicz. No one's that hyped for him. Yuri Prohaska is really just super entertaining, and there's always going to be hype around him. And Magomed versus Yuri would be a really fun fight. But the title picture is not that interesting. I mean, Alex Pereira is getting old. I don't know if he'll win the rematch. Olberg is not the most exciting. The contenders are going to have some good fights. Jamal Hill, always entertaining. Khalil Roundtree, usually entertaining. Azamat Murzakanov is really like the interesting contender because he's looking unbelievably, good in this weight class. Super light on his feet, floats around, literally floats around, stings like a bee as well. He's got like wicked power, explosiveness. He's actually the world's densest person. If you look it up, Azamat Murzakanov, this is just a fun fact, he's actually technically the world's densest human being. And then Zhang Meng Yang, very interesting. He's going to fight Anthony. I don't know if it's going to be a fight, but he'll get in the cage against Anthony Smith, and we know what's going to happen, but there's only one weight class that is worse though, and that is the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division is by far the worst division in the UFC. The title picture, logjam, the biggest logjam, the biggest, weight that we've ever had for a title fight. John Jones is actually getting close to being the longest reigning heavyweight champion, which is just because he's been sitting out for so long. Tom Aspinall, John Jones, that's what the story is right now. The only fresh and interesting matchup is really going to be Tom Aspinall versus Jelton Almeida. That's it, right? So we might not even get the Jones versus Aspinall fight. Therefore, it's not looking so good. And even if we do, that's going to be Jones's last fight. And then it's going to be Almeida and Aspinall. That's the only interesting one that you can make, because even though he hasn't fought Gane, we know he would destroy Cyril Gane. Volkov is there. He should have beat Gane. He got robbed there, but we've already seen Aspinall beat him. We saw Aspinall beat Curtis Blades. And after Curtis Blades and Volkov, it takes the biggest dive ever. The only interesting prospect is Talashin Teixeira. Okay? Like, light heavyweight has Zhang Meng Yang. Heavyweight has Talashin Teixeira, but at least light heavyweight also has Hill, Rakic, Azamat. I mean, after Curtis Blades and Volkov, we're talking Mick Parkin and Shamil the Blob Gaziev and Marcin Tubbyman Tabora, dude. That's literally it. So heavyweight is by far the least interesting because the title picture, Tom Aspinall is so dominant that it's hard to get excited for any of his fights unless it's a guy like Jelton Almeida, but Almeida already got TKO'd by Blades, so we probably know what would go down. It's just not exciting. And we've seen most of the, contender matchups. We've seen Volkov versus Blades. We've seen Volkov versus Gane. We've seen Jelton Almeida versus Blades. Like, we've already seen all these fights. The only one that we actually want that much is Jones versus Aspinall, and we probably won't even get it. And then it's Shamil the Blob Gaziev, who's always entertaining. He's a legend in his own right. I actually enjoy watching him fight. I'm a big fan of him, right? But, he's not someone that's ever going to be fighting a Tom Aspinall. It just won't ever happen, okay? I love Shamil, dude. I think he's awesome. I think he's getting better. He's actually sort of leaning out a little bit, which is good. Of course, he can only lean out so much, though. And I don't know if he'll fight Tom Aspinall. So heavyweight, it's really like a barren wasteland. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What is your favorite division in the UFC? I think this is a pretty accurate way of ranking things. Flyweight is good, but again, I think the bantamweight division just has much bigger fights. Like, even though flyweight is interesting, outside of Manel Cap versus Kai Kara France, and the prospects are interesting, but again, at least bantamweight, although the future prospects aren't looking that promising, at least you have big fights, okay? O'Malley versus Jan, big fight. O'Malley versus Umar, big fight. Sanhagen's still good. Song is still good. Figueiredo's still in the mix. Aldo's still in the mix. He's entertaining. And then I think featherweight is better. I think middleweight is really solid. Lightweight is always great. That's always going to be in like the top 3. And then right now, best division is the welterweight division. Until next time.